Thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with your host, Prophetess T. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on God's green earth. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to I Got Favor, which is your time to your host is Prophetess T. So we're going to bind that spirit of falling off the internet, because this is going to be a really topic tonight, and my internet is active. So, guys, do me a favor real quick. I want to real quick hit that bottom button, invite your friends in. If you got teenagers that are 17, 18, young adults, you want to get in. It's going to be a really good talking. We're going to talk about dating, and what that looks like for a Christian, or is dating even something that Christians should think about doing? What is the Bible stance on this? What is your mindset or your understanding about what dating looks like? And maybe we should talk about, what age do you start thinking about dating from a Christian perspective? And I just want to give you guys a little bit about the young man that I decided to have share the platform this evening about this topic. He is somebody that I've known for some years, and I watch. I'm an observer. I'm very observant of lifestyles. And they say, what do you do as a Christian? We're supposed to test the spirit by the spirit, right? So I checked this fig tree out, and I wanted to see if it had fruit. And all I can say is that whenever we're around each other, my brother excites my baby in my shando. There's no stopping us once we get together. And I've watched him live what he lets come out of his mouth. And that's not just preaching. I'm talking about every conversation we have. His intellect, he challenges me to think deeper and more in depth. He gets into some conversations I think that we as people should get into. He does what we should do, which is Selah meditate, meaning that he does sit under the tree and he wonders and questions. And I love that about his spirit. He makes me kind of jelly, if I want to say, because I wish I was more deep like he is, but I don't want to say he's so deep that he can't be human. Let's put it like that. I don't think he's up in the heavenlies of heavenlies, but he walking really close, you know. So this young man, to me, has been an example. I might find out different. I don't know. But I think God has given me a spirit of discernment that's usually 99.9% on point. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you guys a young man who is a minister. He don't proclaim it, but I'll state it because, like I said, he has fruit. He's a prophet of God. He's an oracle of God. He also, like I said, is a God-fearing man. He is now married. It's still a newlywed in it, if you want to say that. And like I said, I think he's a good example of what um, a Christian husband or a young man should look like. He's also an independent, I want to say Christian artist. He's inspirational, informative. He's just amazing. I cannot say enough about him. But I also want to give this disclosure as we pull Briston Burns into the conversation. Guys, we're having a conversation, which means that there is nothing that states that everything our view is the holy grail. There is nothing we're saying that says that it's the holy grail, meaning that I'm sure everybody's going to have their own perspective or their own intake on how they go about doing this. So let's just be open to discuss it. Let's, eat the meat and spit out the bone, take away what you will, be convicted and repent and turn where you need to, and ask questions. And please, if there's anything that you want to discuss, put it out here. This is a safe place. There is no judgment here. Um, Also, like I said, this is going to be a mature topic. So you might, if you're not comfortable with your kids being exposed to certain things, we've discussed it, he and I don't think there's going to be anything we won't get into. So, meaning that there might be some sexual content when we get into this. So be prepared. Don't be shocked. We're going to have real conversations because we're all adults here. All right. So let's do this. All right. Without further ado, I want to invite my baby brother from another mother into the conversation, Minister Briston Burns. Hey.
Hello, 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 hello. Man, you really talked me up there. Thank you so much for the honor, and I honor you as my sister and a significant voice in my life. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being willing to share a little bit of your tea with us because we're going to get into this good tea. Um, and like I was telling the audience, I want us to have a real, conversation because I think these are things that we need to talk about in the church, especially if you have a young adult ministry. Um, Sometimes we just give the general information, but we really don't walk a person through their process, or they don't feel safe because I mean, let's just be real. There's so much garbage that's out here, and people don't feel like the church house is a safe place anymore, or they feel
Mhm.
like people are two-faced it, and I don't want to be that. So let's have a conversation. Let's get back to what we're supposed to be, which is training gap ground. We're supposed to be educators. We're supposed to be confirmers, as well as teachers and training and developing people on how to live life sold out to Christ. So I thought,
Absolutely.
what, our next generation, which is you and your children, we need to talk about some dating, you know, like the black folks say, whatever happens in the house stays in the house. We don't talk about. I want to
Mm,
reveal those things that we've been wanting to talk about, but been afraid to discuss. So
yes.
let's get into this.
Let's get
Let's get
into it.
into this. Like I said, guys, once again, we might get into some topics that maybe a little you know uncomfortable for you. We're grown here, so we're gonna talk. So one of the things that I want y'all to know is we did not discuss this topic. So I don't know what his view is. He doesn't know what mine is. But we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk. And if we come to a point where maybe we see differently, we're going to agree to disagree. Paul encouraged Timothy in that way too. He said, don't get into those conversations. If it's not relevant to whatever, we're not going to get here and start debating and now block each other and never talk to each other again.
Yes.
We are
No
mature
quarreling.
in the spirit. All right.
Yes.
So when I got to looking up, trying to find out anything with dating, I didn't find one scripture. Do you know any scripture that specifically says dating?
Absolutely not.
How do we come to a conclusion of what Christian dating is, or should dating be something? What was your what did you hear about it, or what did you know about it when you decided that you were going
Uh,
to get out there?
Initially, I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 this year, and I think the initial concept of dating there was none. It is a cultural idea that's just been a part of society. This is what you do before you get married. You date, you court. There's no initially for me there was no guidelines about it. It was initiated through a feeling. It was initiated through an emotion. It was initiated through some sense of passion. If you knew that you wanted to pursue someone, and in that pursuit would be called dating or be called courtship. But in my younger years, right? But as maturity came in, there became the understanding that dating was unto something, and the unto something was the important part. What is it unto? It's unto marriage. So the focus became not dating and being in relationship with someone, but moreover the marriage piece.
That's good. Now, for me, and my understanding, it was just like what you said. Um, I had a whole warped sense of what dating was about. For me, dating was I didn't want to be alone. So
Mm,
I had a need, or I felt like I was lacking something, like I was incomplete, that I wasn't a whole person without somebody being there because I've grown up in dysfunction. So I didn't see intimacy between my parents. I had both parents in the house, but I didn't see that
mhm,
intimacy. But it was a desire in me. It just wasn't a healthy desire because I had also been tainted sexually at a young age.
mhm.
So, like you said, because of the ideal that, and TV puts it out there, and
Right,
magazines put it out there, and
exactly.
then when
Right.
you're in school, you're watching girls and boys hold hands, and now you're seeing everything. It they and them are holding hands. So, I mean,
Mhm,
it's always put in the forefront of your mind, almost like pushed on you that you're not complete unless you have this significant other by your
mhm,
side. So my perspective on uh, dating was just to have somebody so I wouldn't be alone.
mhm.
So when you said you started thinking of it in the aspect of marriage, what did you have in your mind for what was that process like? Like, how did you decide? Did you have a check off list of what you needed? Did you have 20,000 women like King Solomon, or what was your mindset?
I think to answer that question, um, and to be real in it, that in a lot of things, it was a journey, right? And so yes, I had a girlfriend in high school, and we dated for 3 years, and we were both Christians, and that relationship initiated, like I said, through passion. At some point in time, there was too much passion, and what really began to be discovered as some lust that was involved as well. And so when you go through something and you invest so much time and so much energy and money that wasn't mine, my parents' money, at that time, into relationship and into dating, and then you see that it doesn't work out, then it makes you, at least it made me, then stop and think like, wait a minute. Now we've done all of this, and for whatever reason, it's now broken apart. I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to keep going around the mountain. I don't want to keep trying people out. I don't, I don't want to make an investment and then turn around and it's like, oh, that didn't fit. Now that's for me personally, that's tiring, that's exhausting, that's a waste. And I don't think, and where some of the Christian perspective comes in is especially when physical contact is involved. Of well, if that's not my wife, then that's somebody else's wife, and I just participated in tainting that individual, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically, sexually, whatever that is. And so as you grow up, and you start to mature and you start to recognize that, and I wish that I could say that the idea of what is this unto was mine, but it was actually a dear pastor of mine that asked when it came to me not dating. I think before I met my wife, Kari. Shout out to Kari. I'm sure she's watching.
Yeah, she's got
We've
a
been
comment here in a minute. I'll tell her.
okay.
You want to pull it up so we
We
can see
will.
it?
Sure, if it's yeah, go ahead.
I can't see it,
It's
so
It says, for some reason, the church I grew up in made it seem like dating was wrong, but marriage was the goal. There seemed to be shame surrounding dating. So strange. I mean, yes. And for me, no, I did not. I wasn't a part of a group that shamed dating, but kind of connected to where I'm going when my pastor asked me, and I was kind of not asking for permission, but was making it known like, hey, I haven't dated anyone in the past 7 years. And now, suddenly, unexpectedly, in an unorthodox way, here's this woman that I'm like, she's worth pursuing. And the question came to me, but okay, so dating, but what is this unto? And if I could not answer to say that the dating was unto marriage, then at that point it was like, well, there's no point in dating.
that is good. So that takes me back to you said you had dated somebody in high school,
Mhm,
right? And from what I heard, that the relationship you invested time,
mhm.
your parents' money, um, it began to stir up something within you that
Right,
um, began to be lustful, could lead
right,
to being tainted. Um,
right.
so that goes back into when do we decide it's okay to even the ideal of this coming into our mind? Are we mature enough to handle everything that comes along with the relationship? And I think if we here's where we have to use principles of the biblical mindset of when we go to scripture, since there's no specific scripture that states
Mhm.
anything about dating per se as a Christian, but in did we even seek God as to is this something we need to be doing at this time?
Exactly,
And I
exactly.
think as Christians, we don't because in all honesty, for me, all I heard adults saying is they were always trying to marry somebody off. They were matchmaking.
Mm,
I heard a
mhm,
lot of that growing up. So it was always
mhm.
in my mind that dating was because you were looking for marriage, but not everybody that's in the church has had that mindset because the world puts it out there as this is for fun. I'm looking for somebody to hang out and do things with, or friend with benefits, whatever
Right,
thing going on. It's no
right,
uh covenant. There's no ideal of covenant, which is what God, if we look at if we model God, God is a covenant God. And I think when we have to understand, well, is this if is what I'm doing going to lead to a covenant, like you said? So did we seek God, which is something, Proverbs. I'm gonna bring that first scripture up. Seeking God in all things. We have to remember, not being religious, guys, but if we really look at the Bible as a blueprint or a instruction book, then why don't we ask God, am I ready in a relationship? Is this where you have me in my walk, in my purpose? Um,
yes.
and I think when we jump into it too quickly, too swiftly, too young, it leads to like what you stated, you know, time, energy, and heartache and heartbreak.
Yes.
Um, Miss Jessica says, why is dating not taught in church? I can't see all of it. It's
S Why is dating not taught in church? It's in the book Song of Solomon, question mark. It's about love and dating. In the natural, we're taught to date to marry, but we should marry to date, from
oh,
Daniel
Pastor
Brooks.
Brooks, look at you sitting over there in the cut. Which is, we Briston and I kind of talked about the song of Solomon. So Pastor Brooks, calm down. You getting ahead of us. But we're gonna get to that question. But I think that it's a good point. Parents, you should think about this too. When your teenagers come to you and something is being stirred in them. What is it? I mean, can you
And
ask them legitimately to explain that? Go ahead.
so right there, that might be, and again, I love using the word culture because everybody's culture is different, and culture is so much different than ethnicity. But that part of you said that when your teenagers come to you, and I remember when I was what was a sophomore in high school, I didn't go to my parents in regards to this thing about dating. It was suddenly, oh, Briston has a girlfriend. There was no permission, there was no asking of if I'm ready, there was no mentor, there was no father figure. My dad was present in the home, and I say father figure as that can be, anyone that has that your ear in that way. Um, there was no one to tell me, yes, you're ready, or no, you need to mature a little bit, or even someone to hold you accountable to say, again, right now, I think you're just burning with lust. I think that's what that is, and why you want to be, connected. There just wasn't that. At least it wasn't for me. Even going on into college, at that point, and getting into another relationship, it was just there was a passion, there was a desire, there was an inkling of, oh, I like you. And that's the way it started is I like you. And then from the like it moved into the I agree. It's a different perspective now to say I'm more focused and should be and need to do a better job at it. More focused now on dating in marriage than ever outside of marriage.
Yeah, that's a topic too. We're getting to that though too. That's a whole nother topic. But even dealing with what you said, and I'm going to talk from my generation because this ZWXYQ, whatever generation we're on, is totally their perspective and mindset of what we, and even you, because you're younger than me, 2 years younger than me. Um, your mindset of when you were back, as a teenager, of how you was thinking. Like I told you, for me, and I think for a lot of girls, and I'm speaking from the girl perspective, when we go into a relationship, we're emotional about what we're feeling. Oh, this is the best thing. He makes me feel, and oh, I don't feel complete without him, and all the I mean, we get so emotional in this that we're willing to sacrifice to give without even thinking. Just because our emotions are so caught up, we're not using our sense. I think sometimes our I don't know, endorphins take over our common sense part of our mind, and like I said, it depending on where you are mentally, healthy wise,
Mhm,
understanding what real relationship is like, what that looks like,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
determines what you get into. Because with me, like you said, uh, I came up around a Christian mindset that dating was to, in the end, be married, but nobody was maneuvering with us kids. There was sneaky stuff going on. We would have Christian parties, boys and girls were there. There was some monitoring, some chaperones. But when you want to do what you want to do, you find a way around it. And it became where
yeah,
I seen and observing it, all honesty, the very kids that I seen that were gung ho, hardcore, doing everything for God, were the ones that were sneaking outside with their tongues down each other's throat or in the back seat of their car having sex. Why the chaperones are inside? Because we had no conversation. My mother didn't have sex talks with me besides the general, you can have a baby doing this and that. She
mhm,
didn't have sex talk about what my body was doing, the change, the desire I was having, or none of that. She hadn't even known that I had been molested or there was incest going on in my family because nobody had those conversations in the black family.
mhm,
Really, we don't talk about that. We don't
right,
have those. intimate. At least in my time, we didn't grow up where my parents even broke that down. We didn't talk about the different things and perspectives, or even, if you're inquisitive about somebody of the same sex. We never had those conversations.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, where are our children in that? Do we have those conversations with them to see
Right.
where their mind
Right.
is? And in all honesty, I really think my mom blocked, not wanting to see that I was maturing.
Mhm.
So she side-eyed when she see me Google eyeing a
Mhm.
boy, or when I was hanging on the phone calling boys from school and stuff. She didn't get into it and start like, "Hey, I need to pay attention."
Right. So you just said a lot, and it was like flag here, flag here, flag here of this, comments for me to make. But I think one thing that I think about right now is, um, I, for the record, I recognize that not everybody's mind is on sex. Okay,
Right,
I'm gonna go ahead
right.
and just say that not everybody's mind is on sex. But if we if we put this into age brackets of considering, um, let's just go into adolescence at age 13, from 13 to 18, and maybe 19 to 23, 24, and 25, and on up, that the body is going through changes. Like you said, you talked about puberty that's happening, and you mentioned that you're in a place that you didn't want to be alone, and you wanted to give, you wanted to be with someone. And I think, as we think about um the psychology of it as well as the biology of it, that the on the women's side, that you are actually desperate to receive, and
Mhm.
on the male side, we are eager to give. And so, right, we have that male, that female end of the connection taking place. And while that can be sexual, that's also emotional. That's also, like you said, based upon what we have seen in society. And when we talk about conversations, my parents didn't have that conversation with me, you know. But when I remember, and my parents, if you ever see this, no offense to you. Thank you. You did the best that you could do.
Right.
But I remember there being a conversation with them where my mom's telling my dad, "You need to talk to Briston about, you need to talk to him about sex. Like, he's getting of that age. Dating is going to start taking place." And I remember my dad responding saying, "He'll learn about it at school." He'll learn about it in schools. In gym class, they have the sex ed, the birds and the bees, and go into all of those details. But as we opened up tonight's session, where it is imperative that us as parents, like, it's our responsibility to have that conversation and to give the space for our kids to speak. But then that also carries on beyond the age of when the kids are still in the house, to then now brothers and sisters. We got to be having that conversation with each other when we start to burn, with passion for someone else, or someone else we think about dating. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I totally understand. Kari brought out too, waiting until 14 may be too late. And if you think about it now, our kids are exposed to adult things a whole lot
Mm,
sooner. I
mhm,
mean, if you
mhm.
pay attention to
True.
what's running across your TV screen, the lyrics, to the
True. Yeah.
music, if you're allowing your kids to have access to YouTube, uh, TikTok,
Very true.
Snapchat, all that, you
Very true.
even the video games, because the internet, uh, it taints. It's you as
Yeah.
much as you try to protect, they still throw stuff out there, that could
Mhm.
cause your child to fall down a rabbit hole that exposes them to something a lot sooner. And now even the school is getting into a whole lot of stuff. I don't even want to get into that conversation that I think should be handled in the household. If we're not handling it, then they're being influenced by what they're being told is the thing to do. So Yeah, I don't want to get stuck in just talking about teenagers, but I think basically
Right.
what we're saying is maturity should be involved. Like mentally, what is your mental state when you decide that this is something that you're interested in doing? Are you
Yeah.
mentally ready for what this is going to take? Have you had a
Yeah.
conversation with somebody just to see where you are mentally, in your
Hmm.
walk? Yeah.
Hmm.
It is. I mean, even the way they dress nowadays, these 13-year-olds look like grown women. I don't know, it's in their food or something. So, yeah. So, okay, so we're talking about we're gonna move past that. I hope we've given you parents it's something to think about. I really think you need as soon as your kids go out to school and you can have a conversation where they can say yes and no, you can start talking. Subtly about it. And I think it's something that should be talked about frequently. Like as soon as my kids would get out in school, I'd probably start talking about it because like I said, I was the first time I experienced anything sexual. I was 3
Mm.
and it was by another child. I think he was
Wow.
maybe 4 or 5. So that's what I'm saying. And I'm 53. So if that happened that long ago, I'm quite sure it ain't changed.
Right.
Especially with us falling farther away from perfection, it's probably worse now. If you just look at the statistics of what's going on. Um, but anyways, moving on to the we'll say the young adults, 20s on up, from the perspective that you said that you waited a while after the hurt before you decided to get into it. And you did decide to go to somebody and have a conversation. And he asked you, um, what was it to end with? So, like I
Yeah.
said, when you started thinking about that, um, did you look at her in the perspective of were you friends first, or when you first started paying attention to her, was it that I'm looking for a wife? What was your mind?
So I think that in that waiting period, so high school relationship, college relationship, and then came an extensive waiting period. And during that extensive waiting period, I say the focus was on me. It was on school. It was on career. It was on ministry. And I was just pursuing after Jesus. But at the same time, I had people all around me asking me, "When are you going to get married? Where's your girlfriend at? Who are you dating?" And it's like nobody, and that's okay, and that's fine. I don't have to have someone, but at the same time, I believed that God had someone for me. And the story is, my bro Andrew Lutz, he we were roommates and we're talking about dating, and he said, Briston, here's the reality, man. You are too busy. You are very busy. I don't know how you're going to even fit a relationship into your life right now. Maybe the best way, if you really do want to be in a relationship and you want to find your wife, he said, why don't you just get on Tinder? He had been on Tinder and had met a girl who now is his wife, and so I said, "You know what? Okay, fine, I will." And within 2 weeks, there was Kari. And she doesn't like to admit it, but she swiped on me, and this is earlier when I said in an unorthodox way, right? Some of you might
Mhm.
be like, "What? You was
Yeah.
on Tinder?" Yes, yes, yes. I got on Tinder, and yes, I changed out some profile settings and tried my best to make sure that people, that the ladies out there understood this is not a one night thing. This is not I'm not here for that or whatever. And so God was in the works of that. And so no, we weren't friends. We didn't know each other from high school or anything like that. It was a connection that happened, and we took time and we talked for a good 2 months before we ever met each other in person. So it was text messages, it was phone calls. You might call that some of the courting phase, but even then, once we went on our first date, which was just our first time, meeting each other, face to face, that was just really verifying that you're real at that point, in this society, and it was just bliss from there. But honestly, I've forgotten the question that you asked me, so I'm just kind of rambling. But
No, you're
I need to say this though. It was amazing that when you had asked God for something, for someone, for the one, and you waited. And I'll never forget, one of my worship pastors told me, Briston, you're going to find your wife when you at least expect it. When you're not even looking for her, that's when she will come. And that legit is, I mean, that's really, I feel like my story. I wasn't looking. Even when signing up for Tinder, I was like, this probably isn't going to work. But there she was. And the first night that our first date was at the Eagle in the Highlands, and I was determined to just be myself. I'm not trying to impress her. Like, you're gonna get the fullness of who I am. And I remember walking away from that night. We ended up spending about 5 hours together that night, outside, walking the Highlands and that sort of thing. And I remember calling my buddy Ryan Lawson, who ended up being the best man in my wedding, in our wedding, and I said, "Bro, I think I just found my good thing." And so it was that quick. And so hopefully that even ministers to someone out there as this topic of dating, where it's like, and who knows what the book says statistically. And I remember a college buddy of mine telling me when he was dating, Chris would say, he had read a quote that it doesn't take you but 6 months. If you don't know in 6 months, then you don't know. In other words, it doesn't take the 3 years that I had before to figure out if this was the one, for me. I walked away that night like, oh my gosh, it was in my spirit, like, this is, I think I think this is her.
yes. And I think I want to go back to something you said too earlier in our conversation when you talked about even with if you're dating multiple people and things aren't
Mhm,
working out, but you get into
mhm,
situations where you find yourself now getting lustful. So,
yeah,
um, for me, and I thought, and you and I were kind of talking about this, and Pastor Brooks kind of got into it as well. Is if that one's not the one, and now you've got yourself into a situation where you find yourself hot and bothered. So the whole mindset of what you're looking for what you're trying to find is being tainted because now you've kind of compromised your relationship with this person and found yourself in
mhm,
a way. Um, how do you what is your take on, and this is what I think we should talk about, is intimacy. Should it be, how did you feel about petting is what they call it. The
mm,
light start, the hug leads to the
mhm,
kiss. And
mhm,
sometimes if it's just you and you're grown, it's you and
mhm,
that person, and you start spending a lot of time. Now you got
mhm,
feelings getting in here the more time you spend
right,
together.
right.
So
I
let's
I
talk about that.
I think, looking back on that, I say that it's dangerous. And someone mentioned, Song of Solomon in 8 and 4, it mentioned, don't awaken love before it's time. And when I even think about don't awaken it before it's time. That means that there's something that I can introduce to myself or introduce into a relationship that can cause something in me to rise in prematurely, right? And I think about that part, but then in the age thing, this is why I kind of went in the direction of starting with the categories of young, because I think a lot of us don't really understand what's happening internally. If we don't understand what's happening internally in our minds, in our emotions, in what's going on in puberty, then that begins to be confused when something starts to get awakened because we don't know what exactly is getting awakened.
That's
Does
good.
that make sense?
I'm gonna
I
stop
don't.
right there. Yeah, stop right there just for a minute. Guys, this is gonna get I don't wanna end it like this. So what I'm gonna do is my speaker is going to end. So anybody that's gonna be listening to this audio on my podcast broadcast, uh, you're gonna want to come to my Facebook page and get the rest of this because we're gonna carry this conversation on until we can end it in a good place. This is way too juicy. Too much good tea is happening right now to stop. So we're gonna fade out so that Danny can cut me here, and you guys find my I've got favor T Freeman page on Facebook or find me on I've got favor on Instagram and you'll be able to continue to watch this or get onto Roku and get the Infinity Television Network app downloaded. My channel is channel 32 on there, the favorite channel, and continue to watch this program for those of you that are listening to the audio so you can continue this. But we're going to carry this into a series. So thank you for tuning in for y'all, but we're going to continue this live on our broadcast. Is that good, Danny, for you to fade out on? All right. Okay, let me read this comment and then we'll get back into it. It says, I would never date a religious girl. I would not be able to talk to her and don't over protect your children. It's not good for them. The world is hard. Okay. But you were saying, Briston, continue what you were saying. I'm sorry because I
What was
interrupted
I
you.
saying? No, it's okay. What was I saying? So I think that again, that was in when we're talking about the different ages, that it was important because you got to think we all love to quote, "Train up a child in the way they should go,"
Uh-huh.
right? And
Mhm.
so, and even to speak to Frank, like I don't think it's necessarily to overprotect, but it is to inform, and knowledge is power. So I'm empowered to know this is what's happening in me. I'm bringing greater awareness to myself. I'm bringing greater awareness to my kids. And this is something that hopefully will stick with them as they continue to grow, as we continue to grow in age. And so, um, talking about the idea of awakening love, um, before it's time. Um, I have no
And the
idea
scripture you guys were
what were you
talking about
saying.
is 8:4. So
Yeah,
Solomon 8:4. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, we were talking about what do you do when you find yourself getting to a situation? Because what if, like you said, it leads to something
Oh,
where you've
intimacy.
gotten, yeah, right.
Yes. So
That's what we were
I
talking.
think I had said that the intimacy part is dangerous because think about that. We love to say that a kind of a definition or an understanding of intimacy is into me you see. Who should have
Good.
the permission? Who should have the permission to see that deeply in you?
That is good.
Who should have the permission to see that deeply into you? That if something is starting to get awakened and something is becoming you're becoming enticed and deeply involved, that is now feeding that desire for you to open up so that you can be seen, so that your heart can be exposed. Like this is where we talk about that married to date versus date to marry. It's like hold, pump the brakes. But if we're not having the conversation about what's happening on the inside of us, then there's no awareness. There's no platform to stand on to say, "Ooh, no, this is wrong." The fact that I feel like this with you on night one, this is wrong. This may tell me that there's something in me that is seeking intimacy when I shouldn't be because I don't even know you.
Right. And I think that I'm talking about me. For me, that was it. Because I thought, because of being tainted so young, I thought that showing somebody love was sex. So, and the only way I could keep that person in my life was to offer myself to
Mhm,
them. And I would
mhm,
get overly attached like right off the bat because once again that need um, just the spirit of the fear of being alone,
Mhm.
without somebody. So whoever would come across my path and pay attention to me, automatically I was in a deep, long relationship when they had no interest in that. It was a booty call. But
Yeah.
I would get myself so caught up in that. And then, like you said, now the devastation that I'm carrying away from that relationship because I'm not getting the phone call. Uh,
Mhm.
um, I'm being shunned. So are we
Mhm.
thinking about this process of these are the type of things that can manifest from
Right.
being petty. When I say not petty, petty, I'm talking about like hugging and getting into,
Okay.
like you
Yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
arousing. And
Mhm.
I'm the type of person. Um, I I think I probably think more like the male. If we start that, I want to be about that. So
Yeah.
if you're not mature
So
in self control, submitting your flesh, putting your flesh under subjection, if you don't even
mhm.
have that type of discipline, getting into, doing that can be treacherous. It can be
Mhm.
dangerous territory. That's why I said, do we seek God and even seeing if we're ready, mentally
Mhm.
mature enough, ready to step into these waters? Because
Mhm.
Satan's always looking for an opportunity.
Yes. So there's a few things just going through my mind right now. So um, the subject tonight is dating, but the real subject is marriage. The subject is dating tonight, but the real subject is marriage because even as we kind of still rest in that scripture of not awakening love before it's time, we have to understand at what phase is love being awakened before it's time in
Mm,
dating.
that's good.
That it is during the dating period, it's during the courtship period that there is the highest probability of love being awakened before it's time. So if I change my position and I'm not concerned about dating, but moreover I'm concerned about marriage, then I bet the risk of awakening love before it's time will significantly decrease.
That's a thought.
It is a thought. And as we talk about that, the Bible is not really saying anything. We said in the beginning, we don't see a scripture about dating, but we do see Christ telling husbands to love wives as he loved the church, and we do see the concept of marriage, and we do understand that from the foundation that even the um, that sexual intercourse was really the time and not of marriage, of the two becoming one. And so there's this heavier perspective on the marriage side of it, right, than
Right.
it is the dating side. And so if I'm concerned about awakening love before it's time, if I was more concerned about, Lord, who is my spouse, who is the one that you've given to me? And like you said, it was a matter of prayer, then what would dating really look like? Do you understand what I'm saying? If
No, I
if and
am
this is
listening.
something that
No.
I'm just really thinking of in the moment of even like what I may, teach my boys, and now even considering my little girl. What if we don't need to consider the concept of dating, but we need to really look at the holiness of marriage?
Mm,
And we need to understand what his original intent was in marriage. And that if I go into life, if I go into society thinking from that perspective, how will that influence me regarding dating?
right. And I think that is the point. What what is dating to us? Like you said, what's the end is very important. Are you doing this just because you want to have a good time? Um,
Mhm.
and if you just want somebody to hang out with, why does it have to be a boyfriend girlfriend thing? Why can't it just
And you
be
said you
friend?
yes. Yes, I was just about to say that the title itself is dangerous. To
Mm.
have the girlfriend or the boyfriend. And even in that different position that I'm talking of speaking from, wife and husband carries a completely different weight. Girlfriend and boyfriend carries a thing of this is this can easily be thrown away. This can be frivolous. This can be fun and enjoyable. It doesn't carry responsibility and it does not carry accountability.
There's no covenant.
There's no
There's
covenant.
there's no covenant in that, and I think society too taints the understanding of calling somebody my wifey or my hubby, because now that's I hear that with the young people. Oh, this is my wifey, but you're not. There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. You can walk away tomorrow and you have another wifey or another hubby.
Mm,
So I think we need to really, dive into why am I thinking this? Like you said, awakening. Maybe God is taking you down a road. And I thank God that you had the right people around you who was helping
mhm,
you to see outside of where your focus was, that was giving you like, bruh, do you see how busy you are? Are you really ready to add this? Because
mhm,
we as
mhm,
women, we want your
mhm,
attention. And
mhm,
what if we're too soon getting into it when God is dealing specifically with you? Like for me,
mhm,
um, being healthy for a good relationship never happened. So I ended in a first marriage of 19 years that was just chaotic. I knew God didn't want me in it, but I'm this hardcore. I got to prove everybody wrong person,
mhm,
because of
mhm.
not having a good, healthy relationship with the father. So I couldn't have a good, healthy relationship with this man I thought was my husband.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
look at the
And
damage
so
we do to one another now because that
yeah,
was never who God intended for you. And you've damaged that person.
exactly,
That was never yours.
exactly, exactly. And so if that's it, and that's what we learn, and that's what it comes to, I keep bringing age into it. That's what it comes to as let's just call it maturity instead. As we come into a mature state, if that's the epiphany, then how does that change? How does that revelation change what we are teaching the younger generation?
Hmm.
If we learn this in maturity, why do I still want to utilize this dating concept with someone who clearly is immature?
Hmm.
If this is what we gained in the place of maturity, why are we even given permission for it to happen in immaturity?
That is so
Everybody
true.
may not agree with that, and that's okay. Everybody may not sit well in that, and that's okay. But I want to challenge your thinking in that. I mean, I'm married, but I'm just thinking through everything right now, and I was like, this is what I think that this is even greater. What was behind that question that my pastor asked me of what is this unto? Because again, he said, if it's not unto marriage, then what's the point? What's the point? There's this may be a side note. Hopefully, it's not a rabbit trail, but I think that it is significant as well. And some of you may think that, oh, that's really extreme. Um, but I also want to say that we're obviously speaking from the lens of being Christians and being people who are pursuing hard after Jesus. So we care about what His heart is concerned with. So let me lay that out as I say what I'm about to say. Um, Another father figure in my life, and again, if Eddie James happens to see this, I hope you don't mind me sharing. But I remember that there was a time in his ministry, And you got to think we're all young people. We're traveling the nation together, in and out of hotels, sometimes sleeping in a church. You meet various people. There's opportunity for love to be awakened, in a sense of you want to date. You think, oh, this is my person. Oh, that's the one. And then you got some of us that want to be super spiritual and immediately say, I had a drink last night, and that's my wife. And so the one of the amazing but hard requests that was made, if you think that you found the one, if this is someone that you suddenly really want to date, then the mandate was take 21 days and fast from that person and see if you still feel the same way afterwards.
Hmm. Hmm.
Take the time to disconnect, no connection. Don't see them, don't communicate with them, and see that at the end of that 21 days, are you still burning with passion for that individual? Because that will tell you very quickly if it was just a lustful thought, if it was just something in you that was a fake flame that was burning for someone. Let time and distance be there and see how it's a true test. It's a true test because when we talk about covenant, as you said, if it's someone I'm supposed to be in covenant with, it's someone I'm supposed to say yes to in a covenant, in that kind of reverent way, there's no connection that severs that. There's nothing that can sever that connection.
That is so good.
There's nothing that can sever that connection. You talk about some people don't believe in love at first sight, but is it, but there must be something that can connect people like this in a moment. If you and I can come together, not know each other, but there's something in you that begins to leap as I begin to talk, there's some kind of connection that's immediately there. Is this, I'm really going on a rabbit trail here, but is this why there's no concept of dating? Is this why? Because people back then, and I know there was cultures that people would matchmaker, you gotta marry this person or whatever, but do we trust God enough that He will reveal to us that this is the one, and it not take 6 to 8 months, it not take sleeping around, it not take I really getting going somewhere, aren't I? It not take all of that. And is
You
this
didn't
what
go
we're
down the rabbit hole.
teaching?
That's a faith walk. Once again, if you have that desire, do you not think that God will meet that desire? But also, I always encourage my daughters, my spiritual daughters, how do you know God is not working on you to prepare you for that? But you're so focused on that, you're not being prepared to be that thing, that man that find a good thing. If you're not,
Mhm,
working on what God, keeping your mind stayed on him first above everything else, and
mhm,
allowing, believing that God will bring that across your path.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
guys,
yeah.
I think he gave you a lot to think about, and we're going to continue this, but not tonight because I want you guys not to be overfed. We're going to continue this, Briston. I want to bring you back. Um,
Okay.
so I gotta get you to look at your calendar.
Okay.
And guys, y'all want to tune back in. Even if you got statements, questions, whatever your opinions, everybody's entitled. Like we said, there's no scripture that specifically speaks on the topic. This is just us sitting, talking as brother and sister to one another. You, all listening, and we're sharing our mindsets on this. Where do we think we missed it in the church as far as
Yeah.
discussing these things openly? We need to talk about this
Yes.
because people have
Yes.
questions. How do we do this? How do we keep ourselves from falling into temptation? Um, being affectionate during this time, keeping your body as a temple to God in this, so that we see less single parent family because we have out of wedlock, births, babies, and all this stuff. We need to have these conversations. We really do.
Yeah.
Um, So I appreciate all of you guys that did comment, all you guys that are going to share this, all you guys that are going to come back. Hopefully, I'm going to look and see if I can get Briston. I don't have anybody scheduled for next Friday. Look at your calendar and let me know if I can bring you right back.
I
Um,
will.
uh, and we're going to continue this topic of Christian dating. Is there such thing? Um, what is God's take on it? Whatever. We're going to get into this. If you guys got questions, keep continuing to post them. I'm going to pin this to the top of my page this week. Leave me messages in your inbox, and I'm going to share them with Briston. And if there's something we don't know, give us time to research it and get back to you. But this was good tea. And I want to thank your wife for allowing you to come on and for me to steal you for a little
Yes.
bit over an hour. But this is
Yes.
good. I want you guys to go back, rewind, and watch this and think about what he said. You left some good jewels that I'm going to go back and write down notes to bring back to your memory when we come back. I like the intimacy thing. Allowing somebody to see the enter me. Am I going to give you
Mhm.
access to that? That right there,
Mhm.
bruh, was deep.
Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
bars. That was bars right there. So, guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank my guest, Briston Burns. Like I said, Kari, I love you. Thank you for allowing us to share some time with your hubby. Um, let's get into this, guys. I think we need to have this conversation so that maybe our thought process needs to be changed as to maybe it's not Christian dating, but maybe it's Christians getting married. So maybe it's from
Mm.
that perspective we should be looking at it.
Yeah.
What does
Mhm.
getting
Mhm.
married look like? What's the process?
Yeah.
Y'all
Yes.
see loud on that for a moment.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So
Absolutely.
thank you for tuning into I've Got Favor, where it is your time to shine with me, your hostess. Briston, don't go nowhere. Hang on. The rest of y'all, I'll see you back here next week at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on I've Got Favor. Be blessed. Talk to you soon. We thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with Prophetess T.